Now, I wanted to show you a couple of surprises. So I'm going to take the cape away from you right away. This is a Canadian dress uniform for a nurse from the First World War. This is probably about 1917. The skirt shorter and more A-line. Each year there are restrictions and limitations. Of course, there's a war on, and the textile and garment industries have to supply the military. So the garments have to correspond to those regulations, but they also have to be practical. So the skirt A-line, she can take a full stride in this. There are no gathers. There's a limited amount of decoration and so on. Now, actually, it's a one-piece dress, but it's disguised as a suit, because we have a jacket bodice that would end here, and then a skirt is a separate piece underneath. But if it's a one-piece garment, it's easier to put on and it's easier to maintain. Most dresses before the First World War fastened at the back, and were usually in two separate pieces, a bodice and a skirt. But as women had to become more independent, they didn't have a husband to help them do up the dress and things like that. They changed the structure of their garments, and by the beginning of the First World War, most garments will fasten at the center front, as this one does. She can get in and out of it on her own. The buttons should be shone. They should be shining. I don't talk so good no more. But the reality is, every time you polish them, you lose a layer of the brass and you'll lose the detail. So we don't do that. So forgive me if you are regimental and you think that's an issue. The belt is actually from, it is appropriate, but it's actually from a Second World War uniform. This uniform and what it stands for is remarkable because it was the first time that women were put into the Canadian Army. There were women who would have worked as nurses, but not necessarily part of the Army. So these are women who are enlisted soldiers. When they got out of their training, they were commissioned officers. Not because the government was being generous, but because they figured if the women weren't officers, the men patients wouldn't do what they were told. So they commissioned them, the guys had to obey or they'd go on report. So, but when you think of, it was a practical thing, but if you think of the long-term consequences of that, it really is quite remarkable. So the suit, the dress itself, the uniform is wool. This is not a military cape for the period, but we use it because it is of the period. And a cape was an essential part of the uniform because, of course, it was a blanket. And if you were in a dire situation and you had to help someone out, then this is exactly what you would need. This is not the correct hat, but it is identical to what you see in the photographs. Natural straw with a plain black velvet band, or it might have been a different fabric other than velvet. But this is the best option that we have at the moment. And it's smart and attractive and serviceable. It is most likely 1917. It could be a little bit earlier because actually it's been shortened 2 or 3 times because each year throughout the war, skirts got shorter. And I haven't put it down to its longest length because those shortenings are historic and they're part of the garment. It's a different issue with some things than you do restore them. In this instance, we leave it as it is. Incidentally, that is probably 1917, which is the year Canadian women got to vote for the very first time. Thank you very much.